Okay, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, super. Hello there. How are you, Jeff?
Hello, Frank.
Frank, sorry.
Jeff
Welcome.
Jeff
Your
couldn't
last name
make it.
is Paris.
Yes, it is.
That's right. I was thinking Jeff. Okay. Welcome. Okay. So first up are the meeting minutes from the last meeting of October. Any comments? All in favor of approving? Aye. Okay, great. Okay. Now we go on to new grading permits, but I don't see anything listed here. 816 Galler Drive. Oh, sorry. Please, welcome. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please approach the bench. If you can lay your plans out on that table and then simply introduce yourself into the microphone. They'll zoom in on your plans. And if you can just give us a brief overview of your project, what you're doing, and then what we're going to be looking for is if it's any construction, like what your egress path is and how you're protecting existing trees. And if you need any advice on that, we're happy to help out.
Okay, great. So I'll introduce us. My name is Amy Stassen, and this is my husband, Ed Stassen. We are the owners of 816 Galler Drive in Newtown Square, and we are planning on doing a little project at that location. So I'll have Ed walk you through it.
Sure. So if you know where Galler is, it's right off Radnor Avenue. Radnor.
Speak to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting recorded now. Better watch myself.
You better be film ready.
Exactly. So basically, it's a 2,000 square foot center hall colonial home. We have a family of five. That live there, plus an au pair. So we're looking to put a master suite on up top and push out in the back to create a great room.
Okay.
Sits on slightly over 1 acre of land. The plans account for all the setbacks as far as trees, as for the Shade Tree Commission. We're not affecting or doing anything to any of the existing trees, both the larger ones in the front yard or any ones in the backyard, unless building a tree house counts. But.
No, but that's nice. Yeah, if you can just show us, so what we would be concerned with is just how you're protecting the existing trees, especially if you have any heritage trees, which would be 30 inches and larger in diameter.
Sure. We don't have any heritage trees. The biggest ones we have, I think this one's a 20-inch or 24-inch up on the front. Mm-hmm. Those are our two largest trees.
Okay.
As far as construction, I believe our architect laid out, there's going to be fencing around really just this tree here and this little 12-inch maple into the backyard. That's the only one where construction would come anywhere close to it at this time. The only other trees are found all the way into the backyard, which won't affect anything.
And you're using the existing driveway, I guess, for construction activity?
Yes.
That's correct, the
Yep.
existing driveway,
Perfect.
and we're going to extend it 5 feet just for an add-on to the garage.
Great.
So that's going to be the egress for all construction equipment or anything else that comes on and off the property.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds good. Any questions from anybody?
Tree protection is very good, looks fine.
Yep.
Liz Springer is doing this.
Yes.
She's on the planning commission.
Yep. And Michael Tate, who I think has done a fair amount of work in the township as well, so I don't think there's any surprises to anything that's being requested.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's just knowledge, wisdom, experience. That's what you pay for.
Ed, I like your perspective better. Thank you.
Well, that's what I pay for, I guess. We pay for. I'm sorry. I had to go home. I have to go home tonight.
Okay. Okay, so motion to approve then? Aye?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good luck with your project.
We'll need it. Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Yep, you too. Wow, this was the easiest meeting ever.
You guys got off really.
Wow.
He's in a good mood tonight.
We're going to run out of here really quick.
Exactly. Thank you.
Your mind.
Thank you, Seth. Okay, no, but I am surprised. We have no other drawings to review, folks. So this meeting will basically be about our goals and where we're standing and other agenda items. Okay, so that's great. We can go right to the goal update. And give me just 1 second. I will pull it up here. And actually, while I'm doing that, I know the first item is always number 1, the master tree plan. So Matt, if you want to give us an update on the survey?
Sure. So we figure we've done about 80% of the trees. We've done 3,229 street trees. The number, I thought the number was going to be higher, but what's happening is the Radnor Public Works Department is doing such a good job removing problem trees that we've been going back and looking at some of the trees that we said were hazardous, and they don't exist anymore. So we've been pulling those out of the survey, which is a good thing. It feels good to do that. So anyway, we're...
Not to interrupt you, when you say pulling them out, are you just striking them on the matrix and you say remove?
Yes, we're leaving them on the survey
Maybe
tool.
just saying remove.
Yes. Yeah, because I figure once we get into the analysis, you know, we might want some historical data. Okay. So of the 3,200, 274 trees have been identified as extreme or high risk of failure. 828 trees have cable and power line issues, which means some kind of intervention, pretty direct intervention. 246 ash trees, and nearly all of those are in decline. The interesting thing is, when we at this time last year, I think we had 1,800 trees surveyed, and we, for some reason, we must have gone after neighborhoods that had a lot of bad trees initially because we knew those places existed, because we've been to places, seriously, like Ravenscliff, that don't have any bad trees, or very few, and some neighborhoods in the northeastern part of the township, they don't have a lot of bad trees. And so, you know, we extrapolated a little bit in terms of the problem in terms of budget, but we're lower than we thought. We're lower than our extrapolations because as we go into some neighborhoods, we just don't find as many problems. And I didn't know, I didn't know of a way to forecast that. I'm not sure there is, but that's the reality. So that's what we're finding. So there are pockets that we haven't done all over the place, and that'll be our next, we're going to continue to do that survey work despite the leaf fall. Because actually we're getting to the point where now we sort of know what a hickory is compared to a beech, even if it doesn't have leaves. So the general takeaways are pretty much, you know, they haven't changed that much. I sent everybody a list of the different sectors that we've surveyed, so that's, from our perspective, we're just going to continue going, and then I think John and I are going to, you know, probably get an analysis going for Steve McNellis as soon as we can. The other headline is Steve Schreiner from the Steve Schreiner Trees has volunteered his staff to do survey work of our parks and the trail. So we haven't done any parks, or we did a little bit of the trail, but we haven't done very much. And he wants to get going right away. We have a second Urban Forest Metrics app that we haven't activated, so John and I are going to get together, activate that, and turn it, and then go out on training sessions. I'll go out with Steve's staff. So he actually has committed a portion of his staff that is not that busy in the winter. I mean, they have a down time. So I'm excited about that, because I think we'll get going on the parks. And I think the only thing we need to really figure out for him is, do we have priorities? Like,
Yes.
do are there certain parks that we should do first? Is the trail something we should do first? He doesn't really care, so he just said that would be helpful for him to have. And
I do have that list, Matt, just
Okay.
based on from the last storm event when I went around to all the parks,
Great.
so.
Great, okay.
And that's, it's a great addition. Steve will definitely help out. He's a local guy, and he does care about the trees, so it's a good thing.
And John, maybe in prioritizing the parks and the trail, we look for those that are most populous, like if we put resident safety first?
Well, yeah, Eileen, what Steve and I talked about was, like he said, when you say parks, what do you mean? Well, Ordericio Park has deep woods in the back, but people don't really go in there. So, and what I thought was the fringe of that deep woods you could survey, and then areas where people congregate, the parking areas, places where people walk under trees to get to the ball
Yep.
fields and stuff.
Yep.
So, prioritize the parks that way. So.
Right.
High-use areas.
Okay, good. So John, you'll put together that prioritized list?
And when I meet with Matt on the 4th, I think we're meeting, I'll have that list ready, and then I'll get it over to you guys as well.
Okay. So Matt, what percentage complete would you say you are now?
I think we're 80%.
Streets, Matt, or are you
Just
talking
streets.
about the whole?
Just streets.
I think you're a little,
A little more.
I think you're
Well-
like 90% with streets.
Well,
Because in
when-
our October budget update, you were 85%.
Well, that was, but.
That must be right.
Well, I think, yeah, I think, so we do everything on a map. We highlight everything we've done on a map. But there's pieces like, I don't know why this happened, but there's pieces like in every part of Radnor that we didn't reach. Like there'd be like 3 streets here, 3 streets here, 3 streets here. So to me, anything is a guess, like for percentage-wise. It feels like like Jane says, we're done. But I mean, given a few streets here and there. I don't want to be that optimistic, so, but if you guys want to say 85 or 90%, I can live with that.
Okay,
mean-
that's good.
On record, sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. We like forward progress versus the opposite.
All right, yeah, that's fine.
But in either case, great job. This is really a super accomplishment.
Thanks for-
Thank you.
Can I just say, so I'd just like to say, Matt, this is incredible what you've done, and for the Board of Commissioners. So I'll go out on a limb and thank you very much for this work on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. And it is always good to have good information when trying to make decisions. So this really, I think, paints a picture, and shows us, the kind of the gravity of the situation that the township is facing. And, will certainly factor into planning for the future. So thank you very much, really.
Yeah,
It's excellent.
you're welcome. Yeah, one of the overriding things that I think John Ward and I, the senior ward, we rode around for a couple days. And here's a guy that's worked on Radnor trees for years. His take, and this was early on in the process, was, it's not as bad as I thought it was. Now, I had just started the survey, so I couldn't answer that. I couldn't even have an opinion. I was totally neutral about that. But there's a lot of areas in Wayne where the street trees are not in horrible shape. I mean, there are pockets of it where there are some ash trees, but ash trees are not the predominant street tree, and because they're forest trees. So it's like, in West Wayne, where I live, there's more ash trees. There's a lot more ash trees than in South Wayne. So there's not one easy, you can't just put one label on our tree issues, except that I think the survey, it's an ongoing useful tool. It's something we should have, I think, in our pocket. So.
Yep. Yeah, we all agree. So, thank you. Next up is the fall tree planting. Ginny, do you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, it's my new second full-time job. But overall, I've gotten a lot of really positive, really excited, really a lot of thank yous from residents. And some of the biggest questions we had follow up, as I was talking to John, they wanted to know what kind of tree ended up getting planted. And I didn't realize that there wasn't going to be a tag on their tree. So John and I have worked out that those folks that are concerned about that, I'll send John their addresses, and he'll be able to find out and report back. And it has been good, though, having one person be sort of the point of contact for them, because a lot of variety of issues came up. Reminding them that get the flag out there. Some people had lost their flag and all that. So thank you to the members who went out and put more flags out for everybody. So my other, I guess, takeaway was we need to start this process a whole lot earlier than we did. But I think that's really about it. We're all done today from what John told me. So everybody, I'm going to follow with all the folks tomorrow on another email, make sure everybody got their tree. And let's see if I got any other notes here. Oh, John and I also talked about we're going to send out a lot of the questions surrounded what kind of follow-up maintenance should they be doing. And I didn't realize that the nursery's going to go back out themselves and water twice. So John's going to put together a little thing for me to send out to everybody so they know clearly what to do now that they've got their tree. So all in all, yeah, a great project and a successful one.
One thing from the contract, sorry, Eileen.
No, go
One
ahead.
thing from the contractor that we noticed, and we didn't even think about this, is we put the flags in, and obviously everybody has their lawn maintenance service, probably Gibbons, blows the flag out of the lawn. So next year, I think it's gonna be great, the contractor agreed, put the flag and take a picture, and then we can put it on a spreadsheet for, all seasons,
Oh, that's-
sort of
yeah,
thing. So
that's good
that'll
feedback,
really
yeah.
help out, because a lot of the flags were not found until later on.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good idea. Okay. On that note, I was thinking, Laura, I know you have a proposal regarding contacting the residents about many of the issues that Ginny just talked about, the tree type, the maintenance. So I thought, do you want to mention that now, since we're on that topic?
Eileen, can you move your mic
Yeah, sure.
closer to you, please?
Hi, good evening, Frank. Hi, I'm Laura Luker from the Radnor Conservancy and just a resident. So the information that did you guys get a copy? Did you guys?
I
Okay.
just sent it
Okay.
out today.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everybody
It's
had a
really
chance to
rough.
read it.
It's just.
Oh, okay.
The
Thanks,
idea
Trish.
is that in the past, residents who got trees never received any real formal care instructions. And I know that in my neighborhood, for the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of trees be put in, and neighbors are always like, what should I do? And so, you tell them what to do. But it would be nice to present it through an email, if we have all that, to be able to give them a cover letter. And what I wrote up was super raw. And it's basically just to say, this is what I think would be a good idea. And then to have a flyer, which would be a separate, and it would be more of a graphic laid out design, that would allow, so they could hold on to that and remember what to do with it. If the contractor is doing something like that, we should talk, look at this, because it's important that, they agree with those steps as well. So I just think that piece is really a nice feature that's never been done before. And we've always kind of talked about it, and it's never been kind of done when Kimberly was doing it, and it's just a follow-up thing. So I also think it would be nice to do it even for I call them kind of classes, meaning the year before and the year before that, to let them know, because there are a lot of trees that are in my neighborhood that are over 2 years old that still have their stakes on them. which they shouldn't. They don't need them.
Right.
And they're starting to, and then you can also see a lot of weed whacking that's happened, and people just don't know. And they get told by maybe originally, you know, water, this, but they don't know what the real, and so if they have something that they can just pull out and have, so that's why it would be nice if it could be graphically done. The information that I gave you, I pulled from one of my tree tender classes from PHS. It's basically caring for your newly planted tree. They have it in a
Yeah.
card-like form,
Right.
which we could even call them and maybe get these. But if we wanted to make it with the township's logo and blah, 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 and I don't know if it has to be vetted through legal and all that. So that is really what I was proposing. I think it would be a really nice idea. I also just had a couple ideas on that note of, do you, and John, you'd probably be able to tell me more about this, but one of my neighbors was asking, is there a warranty? And I said, well, I'm assuming there's, you know, a one-year warranty by the contractor. But beyond that, it's yours. And
That's correct. It's 1 year from the date of install.
so I don't know if any of this needs to be written down, included in that cover letter. The other thing is that my neighbor said, well, this is a right-of-way tree, so it's the township tree. I said, well, that's the idea of it. It's supposed to be a tree on the street, but it's actually probably been planted just past the right-of-way, and it's in your property, so it actually is your tree. And therefore, you are really responsible for maintaining this tree. She goes, oh, I thought the township was going to be doing this. And I said, no. So there's some clarity issues that I think would be, and that's why I think it might need to be vetted through legal to just let people know, because I think they're fine. Everybody's fine. But it's doing that first or the second year pruning. It's super important for these trees.
And also, Laura, we have from the township the list of the right-of-way measurements for all the streets in Radnor. So if someone had an issue,
Right.
you know, and if they could refer themselves to us, we could actually come out and measure that off for them and
Right.
tell them you do, or it's not. It's,
Right.
you know, so,
Well,
because
but
the
really-
right-of-way measurements are all over the
But
map,
guys,
so.
that may be a moot point. I agree, we could be a reference for this resident, but realistically, when they sign up for this tree, it says right in the agreement that whether it's the right of way or not, you're agreeing to take care of this tree.
Right.
It just says
So-
1 year worth of, and I looked to try to see it again, but I thought I saw it said, to be sure, you're responsible for watering it for a year.
Yeah, that may be. But bottom
So
line is
that's
you
where
are
I wanna
responsible
clear
for the
things.
life of the tree.
I have the flyer with me.
So
but-
that's, I just think some of that means, because, you know, in this day of age, in this township, people start to get a little bit more, well, you know,
Yeah.
legally minded.
Yeah, but Laura, I would say, why don't you pause and let's open it up for
Yeah.
discussion? Because I think it's a great idea, you know, conceptually. So it's all just a matter of what do we do with the residents and those that have received trees in prior years? How do we help them out, take care of the trees so it's a good investment? So thoughts?
Yeah,
Go ahead, James.
this is good. I think we need to work on it if we do it. But I don't know, I think, somebody gave us watering instructions and everything. We gave that to all the neighbors, right? You wrote
Correct,
that
I
up.
wrote that up, so there was all kinds of
Yeah, there was a lot
instructions
of
that went out
information already.
to each person. They got it
Yeah.
from Leah, correct?
Well, no,
We
when we
sent
were
it
here
out,
last
and I
meeting,
sent it out in the group email as well to
Yeah,
everybody.
so they got,
when we put the flags out, we had a flyer as well.
Yeah.
And that had the watering instructions. I'm not sure what else was on it, but I know watering, the more important, I mean, you could do a whole chapter
But I think
of
probably
how
some
to
of the.
take care of trees.
Yeah, probably the information that's missing that we could augment and just make part of the routine process next year would be the type of tree. To Ginny's point earlier, we
Yeah.
could actually have that as
That's
part
gonna
of the
be tough
process
to do.
next year. But next year, we could probably just have the nursery just
Keep the
leave the
tag on.
tag on it. Yeah, exactly.
Do they ever have a tag there, John? You said the
I could
wholesalers
just,
don't.
I can make it very easy. I mean, I'll just have the contractor, I mean, all seasons, they've been doing a lot of work for us. If they're gonna be continuing doing the work, we can just have their foreman, and they're very versed on, you know, client satisfaction. They'll write it on there, and then they'll put it in the door with the
Right.
notes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it would just be thinking about, okay, people who have received trees, let's say a year or two ago, and now it's time to remove the stakes and the gaiters. Do we email them saying, hey, I hope you're enjoying your tree, it's been a year, now it's time to do ABC?
I don't think we should put it on the township or,
I think it's gonna be tough to manage that a year
Yeah.
or 2 years later.
I think if we put
it should
something together, like John did, but with more info.
As
And-
As Laura pointed out, put all those things on there. The
Yeah.
watering, the warranty, your responsibility, stake removal, mulching to avoid weed whacker
And then
damage.
email everybody when they pay
Correct.
their thing.
And we can put it up on the website for
Yeah,
people who
put it on the
purchase
website too,
trees,
yeah.
so, I mean,
That would
there's
be
some
good.
validity.
Put it on the website.
Yep. If you want to draft it up, Ginny, the little postcards, my company will donate the money for the printing. Okay?
And
Nice.
Okay, thanks, John. I was thinking we would just send it as an attachment to an email to all these people.
You know what?
You want to, okay. So what do we do, mail it out?
Area where the contractor can write in the name of the tree.
Right, that's. a
Oh,
good,
for
like, a
next year,
black-
you mean?
This is for the next round.
Yeah.
I'll donate all the printing.
Thank you, John. That's very nice.
But hey, guys, what I'm thinking is, could we make up one flyer that we can use digitally? You know, either an email, a website, and I can tell Seth's ready to comment, or a
I
printed
will
card.
volunteer to work on that.
Cool.
Ginny, is that good with you?
What are you volunteering for, the printed flyer or the digital one now?
Both, yeah, and I think what can help with a lot of this is just clear and consistent communication, because I think there's a lot of good information that we're sending to everyone, but probably some confusion has come out of, you know, the different, there's the messaging on the sign-up form, some other forms that we're sending, so just having
Right.
one
Right.
document, I think, would be helpful.
Maybe we could draft it as a Q&A, so question is,
Yeah.
what is your responsibility as the owner? And then we list out those bullets, and then the next question, and keep going down to kind of answer everything Laura's being asked of her neighbors.
Right.
We can forefront.
And
Or it could just be kind of like, this is what you do on day one, this is what you do on
Right.
day 30, year one, year
And if,
two.
and any communication we do send out, just
Yeah.
maybe attach it along with, if we have to send different types of communication. That'd
Right,
be good.
and maybe we could even encourage them to refer a friend next year
There
to
we
have a
go.
tree.
An all-in-one document.
Right, exactly.
And to also put on there to call Lisa Borowski to make sure we get the funding for trees.
That's a great idea,
Right.
James. Lisa, can you give us your cell phone? Okay,
So, John, just to clarify, though, for this year's group, you and I were talking that since the nursery's going to go back out and water twice, and then we're going to get a lot of rain from your weather forecast research, or what are we going to specifically say to this group about watering?
You're talking about the ones that just currently got planted?
Right.
I think we should just answer those. I think we should just answer those general questions that people are throwing at you, such as the species, what we should be doing, and we'll take them on a case by case at that point.
Okay.
yeah, and I'm sure the watering instructions will say something like, water if it does not rain, you know, so we'll cover that, and I assume whatever we come up with, we could use year to year.
Yeah, but it's different. The text that I used was primarily for spring, summer spring planting. Fall planting is different. It's, I always like to say you water on the holiday of the month. Every month I go and water my tree. Or whatever. It's just kind of, it's not, I don't have to do it every other day,
Right.
twice a week. It's usually in the wintertime, it's once a month, unless you're full of snow.
Right,
So there's some changes, but they do
Yeah.
need to be watered over
Yeah.
the winter.
Can we be specific about how much water? Because I'm getting asked that. How
Yeah, we'll
much
put
water
that
am
all
I getting?
together.
Okay.
And then with the temperatures and stuff like that.
Right,
Okay.
and Laura's got that in her,
Yeah,
Did
but
you
as
email
I
that?
said,
Oh,
that's.
We'll do one for fall, and we can do one for
Yeah,
spring.
that
Oh,
would
it's
be
this
good.
thing?
Yeah.
turn it over. Hey, Ginny, it's this guy. Just
Oh, here.
There you go.
I just have one last question in terms of moving forward and soliciting new residents and having residents who have had trees in the past getting a second tree or a third tree. And that's great if that's how you guys feel about it. I just wanted to kind of put that out. There are residents who have gotten multiple trees. So as long as you guys are okay with it and
There's a tree.
So far, we haven't had a waiting list for trees. Hopefully that day comes, but for right now, we're
Okay.
happy for folks just to accept the trees and help regreen the township, I would say.
great. Just want to make sure you guys know that that's kind of happening.
The other thing, Laura, we did talk about before is if we ever do get to the point of having to prioritize, we would look to prioritize the bare spots first, like Garrett Hill.
Right.
You know, and give priority to those residents.
Right,
But
and that would be good too.
we just haven't gotten there yet, haven't had the demand yet.
So last question, sorry. Surveying them, are we going to be able to go back and put them in, the new trees?
Well, as we go, if we see newly planted trees, we.
Okay, so the ones
Yep.
that you've kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's necessary, but,
Oh, I think so. I mean, it's just a matter of like how, you know,
getting the list, putting them
well,
into the.
no, it's just a matter of like, at some point, I think I'm just not gonna wanna do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah. But, you know, the encouraging thing about what Steve Schreiner is doing is, he may motivate other people who are pros
Right,
to,
right.
to pitch in. I mean, I
Right.
think he will. I
That's
think.
so awesome.
And I
I don't know.
think, but I think, to your point, yeah, any new trees, street trees need to
Okay.
be done. They need to be
Okay.
done, so. I mean, the way we see the survey is there's not an end date on it.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a leaf fall, we're going to go to the analysis phase, and then in the spring, we'll start surveying again.
Okay, great, thanks, Laura. Okay, anything else on the fall tree planting before we leave this topic? Okay, Ginny, very nice job. Thank you for being the point person on this.
It's a big deal.
I didn't realize how much it was going to be a big deal.
Kimberly about it.
Yeah, but that's great. That all contributes to our over 300 trees planted this year, which is tenfold what we did last year. Okay, super. I had marked down, excuse me, other donations. So John and maybe James, I just wanted to follow up with you regarding the PICO donation for $1,000 and the 4 trees planted. Did that happen?
I know the
Okay.
trees were paid for.
Okay, and you picked out the spot, the school?
Yes, and they're staying at the nursery.
Okay.
I just need to know from the township what
Right, because Steve McNeilis will do the planting.
is supposed to plant them. but-
Right, right.
I thought there was going to be some sort of dedication or some sort of,
They had that already.
they had that?
Yeah, that's it. And if the township can't do it, I'll do it one day, if need be. Just be better to get them in the ground.
You know how to plant
Sooner.
trees?
I've planted once before.
Okay. Manual we can get you.
Thank you. I'll read this.
I have instructions. Okay. And James, can you just remind me which school was selected? Is it Radnor Elementary? Ithan Elementary.
It's on Clyde Road, so. It's on Clyde Road. And my kid goes there, so.
Okay. And, hey, so to go forward with this, should we have James contact Steve McNeilis? John, I'm looking at you for some advice here. Does that make sense, or
Yeah.
do you mind, James?
Well, let's send an email and whatever we need to do to get it done.
Yeah,
Get them
I
planted.
don't have his email, so if you want to just
Is
CC me,
Steve
and
still out? Okay, getting back, yeah. Yeah.
if you want to email and CC me, and
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
then
I'll
I'll
take care of
tag
that, yeah.
along.
Okay, super. Yeah, so that takes care of the action items under there, so great job. If we continue down the list, budget. Ta-da, that is my action item. Okay, so I went to the BOC on the date designated, and I got there around 6:30. It probably wasn't until almost 9 o'clock that I presented, which at least I got to walk around and take a break. The BOC, that not so. But I must admit, I give the township a lot of credit. I saw their presentations go before mine, and each one that I saw was quite engaging and quite informative. I thought they did a super job. So kudos to them. And then for myself, when I presented on behalf of our Shade Tree Committee, the ask really came down to, hey, we need $25,000 to maintain the status quo, basically what we did this year. So that would be having a spring and fall planting. And that will continue the uptick of us reversing the trend of losing more trees than gaining. So that is assuming that we still receive donations from the Conservancy, who was very generous this year. I know that was the first time, but we had baked that in, hoping we did a good job this year, of $6,000, and of Chanticleer of $18,000. And that usually comes in the end of the year, so we still have to see, did we indeed receive that for 2019? If so, it'd be $25,000. If we don't receive those donations, then the ask is closer to $50,000. So, but I think, Lisa, do you want to comment as, basically it was approved, but do you want to add any comments about the budget and funding for next year?
So we're still in the process. We will be discussing further this coming Monday night. The budget that the township has presented us, and a lot of what we've been talking around is the emergency services, as well as we spent this past Monday talking about emergency services and the community groups that we fund. But it's my understanding from Bill White, and I asked this question to him specifically on Monday night, the township budget that's being presented to us is basically right now status quo. So a lot of the presentations from the township staff that you saw the night that you were there, Eileen, those are things that we are going to be looking at moving forward. So we'll be spending 2020 looking at those requests. There were, a lot of requests certainly around, additional staffing. One of the requests from Public Works was for a tree crew. But right now, looking at the budget, I think what we've decided to do is stay status quo and then look at those as separate and see how we might go forward funding those for 2021. But if there was 25, and you'll have to excuse me for not knowing off the top of my head.
That's okay.
But if there was 25 in the budget for Shade Tree last year, then that is still in there. So don't quote me on that, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. But, and we're supposed to be getting an item by line item listing of the budget with the agenda this week, so it should be out today, if it isn't already. And it's my understanding that everything would be status quo. So if 25 was in last year, there'll be 25 in again.
Okay, that's good, because there was 25 in this year, so we should be in good shape there. And then the other thing that I learned from Bill White is basically that the beginning fund balance, which we have about $61,000, that apparently that has to stay with the Shade Tree Committee, meaning the township can't take those funds and redeploy it elsewhere. So with the $25K transfer from the township, the beginning balance of around $60,000 and the donations of, let's say, $25,000, we would have a total budget of 2020 of $112,000. So from a planning perspective, that's what we should be thinking of in 2020, with the idea of spending every penny. That's the goal, is not to leave any money on the table, but to invest it in trees or invest it in whatever we think is good for the township in regards to, regreening the township. So, yeah. Okay. Any questions?
A quick
Jane?
question about the tree crew. Well, the township requested it?
So Public Works made a presentation to add staff, and one of the areas they wanted to add staff was a dedicated tree crew,
Okay.
As well as the equipment and whatnot that would be needed for that.
And when do you vote on the budget?
So we are going to be, well, we'll have a preliminary vote this coming Monday night, and then final vote will be in December. But what is in the budget is those presentations with those additional asks for staff and whatnot. You know, I'll be honest, we're not in a position right now to fund those, so we are going to talk about how we look at funding those, you know, hopefully maybe in 2021, or is it something that we phase in over a number of years? You know, there was a significant dollar amount associated with that just, right now, we're not going to be able to.
Yeah, because I think me and Matt were going to talk about that, and that we're trying to get the commissioners to come to a meeting. I think that we have information that might help with decisions. I guess you're not going to hear it now, but.
Well, I mean, certainly comment, and if you want to present it, but what the township has presented to us, so they presented, the groups came and made these presentations to different departments, but what the township manager has presented to us does not include that, you know, those requests at this, you know, at this time. So, and then what we've decided, what they've laid out for us is, over the next year, we talk about, you know, certainly the issue of the trees in the right-of-way, you know, how we go about maintaining those, and is the answer going to be to have our own tree crew to do that? Or is it going to be to allocate additional funding so that we can hire out, contract out to do that? But having the information, I think, that Matt and Jean have gathered for us is going to be helpful as we look at that, you know, what's going to be the most, cost-effective way to accomplish the goals that we need to accomplish around the trees.
Yeah.
We just haven't had, I think, a good amount of time to talk about that.
Gotcha.
And certainly would love the feedback. And I think one of the things that we did talk about, and I see there is a proposed agenda, we were trying to get a meeting together with the commissioners and with Shade Tree so that we could talk about this. I think the dates, we were just unable to do it in the short amount of time. But you know, that would definitely be a priority moving forward.
Yeah, and that's coming up in the agenda, maintenance overall, so we're going to talk about that.
Okay, gotcha.
Seth, did you have a comment?
Yes, that 61 number, did that factor in the monies that were used for the other projects that we learned of a few meetings back?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, yes. That assumes the money for those projects, like, for instance, the Briarwood Road planting
Right.
and the Beau Connor Philippone Park, that those funds were already out
Okay.
of the
got it.
budget.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question, Eileen. Do we know what our net is from the trees that we approved this year to have taken down versus what we did end up planting this year?
Yes. I have my budget presentation up, so let me look, because it is in here. For 2019, and I can just see this graphically, we planted 308 trees, and actually that's now 312 once those Pico trees go in. And we took out approximately 180 trees.
Okay, so we're definitely ahead of the curve.
Yeah, this year was a big year with the big WBA project and with the big donation from Cabrini. So that's actually something I wanted to follow up on. John, do you know, have the Cabrini trees gone in, the 12 that were supposed to go in the North Wayne parking lot and the 88 that were supposed to go in the parks?
That is correct. All planted. Yep.
Ooh,
I think
nice.
a week and a half ago, the WBA planting in that long strip was completed, right near the Conservancy office.
Okay.
Yep. I met the guy out there. They started digging, so I assume they were done.
Okay,
Yep.
that's great. And do we know what parks the 88 went to?
There is a list somewhere. I do not have it with me tonight, but I can get that over.
Okay.
The Willows got some, right?
Willow's got some. Hartford got a bunch. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yep. Right here at the park, at the baseball field. Yankee Park. I said Hartford, Willows, and I think Mill Creek. Mill Creek got some. But I have the total list in my office.
Yeah, no, that's super.
I don't think Sawmill got any from the Caprini, no. No, not from Caprini.
Yeah, and then one thing I just want to correct, I misspoke when I said, okay, if we have the budget, let's say of 112,000, and we do a spring and fall planting next year, we actually don't start an uptick next year. Next year, we will expect to remove more hazardous trees than we plant. But that's actually good news, because it's all the survey data that Matt is finding, and we need these hazardous trees to come down for resident safety, and of course to end the cycle that, hey, a tree falls, I lose power, or it lands on my house, and now I want to remove more trees. So we're hoping that if we take care of these hazardous trees, and Steve McNeilis and his crew did a great job this year taking out 180, but we should expect a big bolus to come out next year as well. Okay, so it's really, by the graph, it's 2022 that we start to reverse the trend. 2021 to 2022, we start to plant more trees than we're taking down, with the idea that we're really taking out a bolus of trees this year and next year. So, but good news. We can see we're going in a good direction.
What about exploring more funding, more donations?
I think that's something we've talked about before with regards to even writing grants. So I think that's something we could put on the docket for 2020. With the idea, like, could we possibly write grants? If we wrote grants and got money, could we find others that would maybe match the grant funds that we would receive? So,
Frank just raised his hand, so he's a former HR guy. He's the man to go into the doors, so.
we would be happy to have you volunteer, Frank. That would, because that is not something we have tackled yet. So we would welcome any help in that area.
Penn Medicine, there's a bunch we can start pounding the doors at, so.
Okay.
I'm learning two things. Watch John. Be glad to volunteer. And what I'm understanding is we're going for more donated money via a grant route.
Well, any route.
Any
Actually,
route?
wide open to you. Right now, we receive annual donations from Chanticleer, which is wonderful. Usually it's $15,000 to $18,000 per year in that neighborhood. And then for the first time, we received a donation this year from the Radnor Conservancy, which Laura represents, in the neighborhood of $6,000. But I think a lot of it is we've never really done a lot of publicizing or advertising, or have even let companies and businesses know, hey, we're here, we're out there, we would welcome your help. So it's completely a blank sheet of paper to you.
So going back to the HR comment, we don't have our 30-second story for marketing. We'd have to come up with that.
We have a one-pager that we drafted last year. It was our start at trying to be more facing to the public and be more friendly and look, this is the way that we can help. But we are just starting. And what's great is Seth just joined this year too and has a background in marketing. So we're hoping to do a lot more in the way of communication, both digitally, print, whatever may be effective in telling folks, hey, we exist, we're here to help.
Okay, I'll do it.
And Frank, the Shade Tree Commission, over time, let's say the last 20 years, it's been around, has done grant writing. So like in the 90s and early 2000s, that we were getting money from the state. We were getting, because a couple people on the commission just decided they wanted to apply. And so they just blindly applied, and it worked. And I can actually get you some information on what those grants were. Yeah, just.
And Frank, I can send you the flyer that Eileen's referencing. It was really more geared to the public at large. It was not specific in any way for soliciting donations, especially not from the corporate community. But it'll give you talking points of where, you know, the Shade Tree Committee feels like we bring value to the community, and why it's important for our tree canopy to be protected.
So,
Thank you, that would be great.
Okay.
I would imagine, Eileen, the budget, do we have access to the budget? Because you probably have some selling points in that.
Yes, yes, I can definitely give you the budget,
Right,
like
thank
meaning
you.
the presentation.
Yes,
Yep, I can give
exactly.
you that. And then also, okay, so it's not a lot, but we did put $5,000 in there for communication for next year, for 2020, which is at least double what we had in 2019.
Yeah.
And Frank, I was kidding when I was pushing you to take on this position, but in reality world, our selling point here is all the donations will go strictly just to planting. It's not gonna go to maintenance or research or inventory, strictly just planting. So they're getting value there. And, you know, I think there's a lot of folks out there that are untapped that we can go to and say, hey, you know, we're looking for assistance to bring our canopy. We reached 300 trees this past year, 312. We want to increase that to 512 next year. People, you know, I think we can do it.
Do we?
If some, I'm sorry, Laura. The building we have going on, like the old Wyeth site over on King of Prussia
Yes.
Road near the high school, they're going to be planting trees. Do we get credit for that?
In what regard? You mean, oh, does it
Adding
go into the
number of
numbers?
trees planted.
Let me think about that.
I mean, I wouldn't think we would initially, because that really came through as part of their zoning approval process, you know, didn't it? When they took down X number of trees there, they had to replant X number. I mean, it's not like shade tree funds directly went to planting those.
I was just thinking, counting the number of trees planted in the township, we could count theirs.
It was an incredibly aggressive planting plan, really good one, by the way, and a lot of trees, Frank.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But
Are
no,
there-
when we
can I-
do our
well-
budget, like when we quote something like 300 trees, no, it doesn't include
Okay,
trees
thank you.
planted by businesses or residents. But we do show the number of trees removed. That's what I was checking. Like we show how many hazardous trees are taken by the township or the businesses, and we assume they don't have a replacement. Then we also show the number of healthy trees, which come through on our meeting minutes each month, that are removed by a resident, and they, if they exceed 6, they would have a replacement. So those, we do show and at least know that they're replaced per the formula.
I just have a quick question, or, well, two things. First, I think we should try to, if you want to utilize or touch base with Bob Zinkowski and see if Molly Gallagher, is that her last? Yeah, it's like blanking. The public information officer for the township, maybe it's something that she can provide some assistance with. And then also Larry Healy, who is the constituent rep for Jennifer O'Mara's office, our state representative. He's here the first Thursday of every month. I think, yeah, the first Thursday of every month. So it might be worth it to touch base with Larry and see if, you know, what kind of state money might be out there for this kind of, you know, for this kind of initiative. I don't know.
That's a
And-
good suggestion, thank you.
And my only other question is, if developers come in, and maybe I should know this, are they required to plant a certain amount of trees on their properties and things like that?
Based on what they remove. Yep.
Right.
And salvo, obviously, you know, for buffers.
Just going back into grant ideas, and I've talked to you guys about this before, and different grants have different types of plantings. Some plantings are just give me the money and we'll contract it out, just like some are, we'll give you the trees and you are to plant it with either your public works or a volunteer corps. PHS does an amazing program every year, twice a year. It's their Tree Vitalize. It's a DCNR program, so that's your government that Jennifer O'Mara would be able to explain more. But we go, I've done it with PHS. You go through them, you apply for the grant. It's very easy. I did it last year, and I only did 4 trees because that's all I could physically do myself and put on my car and bring them. But they're bare root, and they're, they do that in, as I said, 2 times a year. And their trees are $50, and they're substantial, nice. They're size, the same size that we put in, you guys put in this time. So it's $50 versus $500. It just means that we have to really work with Public Works. So if you talk to PHS, they'll say Lower Marion, Upper Marion, TE, their shade tree, they all do it. That's how they install their trees primarily throughout. So I think it's a really great program. I think it's an economical program. I think it includes community because you get a volunteer group that comes in. It's a lot of work. It's more work than what you guys just did, but so it's something to think about, to put into your grant ideas.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. I made a note of it, PHS. Okay.
Laura, do we have a list of all the major corporations in the township? Because thinking along what John just threw out about soliciting Penn Medicine, maybe not them in particular because they just did plant a lot of trees for us with their site plan, but there are a lot of other major corporations in this township that maybe someone on the committee could volunteer to solicit to them for, if not a physical tree donation, money to beautify the community. I know from Amtrak that they always want to be good corporate citizens, and I would think some of these other corporations here would want to be too.
So the Conservancy, we solicit everybody. We have, and that's how we raise our money, is through all these corporate sponsors.
Oh.
And when we do our giveaway, which is our spring tree, that's the money that we solicit from, and the people who sponsor us from.
Okay.
But I have to say, people, they like to think that it's not easy. It's not easy. So, even when we do our fundraiser once a year, and it's usually a fundraiser for the tree canopy or trails or whatever, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of
Right.
work. It
Well,
takes a
if
lot
cons-
of putting out letters and following up, but most people go for the grants. Most townships go for the grants. And people like in the township who write the grants, what's her name, who does it for engineering? I don't know. Anyway, she is a wizard at it and knows and it's a whole skill, as you guys all know all that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I would say, guys, why don't we let Frank have some time to think about this, and we can discuss it further in December and make it a 2020 goal. Okay, good.
Yeah, definitely make it a goal.
Yeah. John, thank you for that idea and volunteering. Frank?
You should have never told me you were retired, Mike, right?
Okay, moving to the... Moving to the next agenda item, and that is the Board of Commissioners and Shade Tree Committee getting together along with the township to do maintenance. Tree maintenance is the topic. So Matt's drafted an agenda. The date is still, I think, TBD, but we can at least look at the agenda and Matt, you can tell us if you need any help here, or?
So.
You wanna walk us
so-
through it?
Well, so basically, Laura, when this came to pass, that we were going to have a meeting on November 14th, that did not happen, but it will happen, I assume. Laura was interested. She sent me some ideas she had about what should be on the agenda. I talked to James. We talked it over, talked to other people, just my concern about having an agenda that was explicit is that I think this conversation between Shade Tree and the BOC won't be valuable unless we stick to we get a lot of specific answers to questions concerning how this would work, how this tree maintenance situation would work. So that's all I was trying to do. Frankly, I'm neutral in stance at the outset of this, because I think that's my recommendation, that we be neutral, because I think we all probably have feelings about whether the township should maintain trees in the right-of-way or residents should. But I think what the township is asking us is, can we have a conversation to determine what the best path going forward is, given that we care about our trees? So, like anyway, I think everyone has a copy of this. This is by no means written in stone as far as I'm concerned. I just think that I think a meeting isn't going to be valuable unless we stick to an agenda, and the agenda, you have to come away with answers to important questions and conflicts in this, because there's a lot of conflict in this idea. And I think we have to understand that you know, everyone's not going to be happy one way or the other here. So, what I feel like we need, James has done a bunch of research already with neighboring townships about how they handle this situation. So, I mean, Lower Merion handles the trees in its right-of-way with its own staff. I think they have some consulting budget, but it's probably minimal. But they have tree crews. I think they have 4, is what I remember you telling me, James. So, you know, those tree crews are expensive. These are certified arborists who can work around wires, and they have to have the right equipment and all that stuff. So we don't. So we spend a lot of money on Horgan, basically. Horgan does all the tree consulting work in Radnor. You know, over time, 5 years ago, Radnor spent about $90,000 or nothing, maybe before that, on outside consulting for removing trees that needed to be dealt with, or treating trees, or pruning trees, or maintaining trees. And now it's upwards of $300,000. Bill White thinks we're going to go over $300,000 this year, by the end of the year, in commitments to, and it's essentially to Horgan, so, who does a good job. And then, like, so, but, you know, I think what is pushing this is 2 things. In my conversations with township staff, a period of neglect of maintaining our trees in the right-of-way has led to a bigger problem now and a bigger bill. And so I think the township, and we've heard Bob Zankowski say at public meetings that we're 20 years behind in maintaining our trees in the right-of-way and in parks. And, you know, so we know where he's coming from. So are we going to have millions of dollars to maintain our trees? Are we going to all of a sudden discover millions of dollars? I don't think so, based on how the Board of Commissioners views the budget proceedings. So anyway, I think this is what this whole conversation emanates from, that feeling that the township can't afford to keep doing this. And that residents, if they value trees, the residents should be responsible for the trees in their front yard on their right-of-way. So that, to me, that's what I heard when I talked to people at the township staff level. That's what I heard when I said, why is this coming before us? You know, so that's the simplest way I can explain why we're going through this. And so, and then that just led to, you know, Laura, thank you very much for your input, and people thinking about, what would I ask? What questions would I have if there's going to be a meeting between the BOC and the Shade Tree Commission about this topic? What would I want to know? Like, so what I detailed here is just things that came into my head, and other details, like, so we do know where we could measure right-of-way in Radnor now on every street, because we finally have that document. I have that document, which I will copy and pass out. I think everybody should know where the right-of-way is, where they live. I mean, and when I walk it off on West Wayne, I get a big surprise, I'll tell you that, because the right-of-way is deeper than I thought it was. So, and it varies from street to street. So I think for this meeting, we need to have some raw materials like that because people are going to say, where is the right-of-way on my street? State roads they're not Radnor's responsibility. They're not the homeowner's responsibility. And there's a lot of them in Radnor. And I don't think people understand how many state roads there are and where they are. So that's another. Are the Radnor Parks part of the scope of this conversation? So anyway, I'm not going to go through every point here. You guys can read it yourselves. But I would love it if people look at this document and go, well, there's 4 things that I see that I'd like to hear about that aren't on here, and we'll include that. And anyway, that's my pitch, is just to have a meeting that makes sense and isn't a waste of time. We should have a very structured meeting between the Board of Commissioners and Shade Tree.
So Matt, this is really helpful. Thank you so much for pulling this together. And I myself, just kind of hearing you talk this through, I have some ideas maybe how we could frame this out to make it productive, and I can send those to you offline.
Terrific.
Yeah. Are there other questions or comments for Matt?
Just real quick, since we're not going to have time to meet before the budget, I just want to give some numbers. Lower Merion, their budget was $1.465 million last year, or this year, 2019. Last year, it was one.
James, is that just for maintenance, or is that maintenance and
That's their
tree
whole tree
planting?
crew.
The whole, okay.
Which is 9 guys, which if Radnor was to do something, I think they need to have at least 4 to be safe. So I think you're 4, and then 1 supervisor, or like somebody like John, but that's a full-time job there too. So if you do percentage-wise, I came out to, it'd probably be about $700,000-800,000 for the township yearly, probably. And 2018, the actual budget was 1.4 million, so about the same. And this is from their actual budget. And if you look at their accomplishments, with that budget, they planted 100 trees throughout the township, and they removed approximately 130 diseased and damaged street trees. So that's the right of way. There's more stuff, the calls they made for streets blocked or something like that, and damage. But they were the main things that stood out to me. 100 trees, we planted 300 this year. They removed 130, we did 180 for, what is that, 120%? What did we spend, 200,000, 300? 300,000? They spent 1.5 almost.
That's what Steve McNeilis's group spent, 300,000?
That's what Horgan is, that's what
Oh, okay.
Well, that was in
Horgan,
the budget as well, I think, right?
Not, it doesn't show up in our budget, it would be
No,
in
no,
Public Works.
The township.
Yes.
When they did their meeting.
Yeah, so, but that's, no, that's good. That tells us we'd be like 300K plus 100K, so 400,000, rough numbers,
Yeah.
versus 1.4 million.
And we're doing 3 times the work, it looks like. Haverford Township, they have almost the same size crew with 8 guys, but I couldn't get any numbers from them. But most of the cost comes from salaries and employee benefits, stuff like that. I would say 3/4 of it.
James, I'm sorry, what was that number? I'm sorry.
For which one?
For Haverford Township?
Haverford Township, I couldn't get the
Oh, you
numbers
couldn't,
for
I'm
Haverford.
sorry. Okay.
But they have the same 8 employees on their tree crew, opposed to Lower Merion has 9.
Their tree crew also does leaves and other.
It doesn't say it here.
I'm
The only thing
I'm pretty
they
sure
assist.
they do. Yeah.
And I talked to Joe, the arborist, they didn't. I mean, it's right here, their responsibilities. They did assist in snow plowing
Yeah.
in the wintertime. Clearance for signs, traffics. They did providing tree inspections, removing trees, pruning and trimming curbside growth, planting trees, storm damage, insect control, which I don't know if anybody would want to do that anyway. Snow and ice, and then clearance for signs. And they also collect and chip up the Christmas trees. So I think they're just numbers that, Lisa, you should know for the upcoming meetings. It's expensive.
and Lower Merion is twice as big and geographically as Radnor.
Yeah.
But I think because they've been doing this over time, you know, they might have fewer trees to worry about just because they've been maintaining them over time, where we can't take that credit for that.
Possibly, yeah, but, yeah. So there are the numbers. And they are investing in a $600,000 machine this year as well, to take down more trees. And they do sub out work as well. It's not just them. They also sub out, and that's included in that price.
Okay. No, that sounds good. James, thank you so much for gathering that. That's a nice start. So, okay, so I would say our action item is to feed Matt any comments about how to make the agenda more productive, or to his point, just, are there any key questions that we should consider as a group to figure out what we are or are not going to do regarding maintenance? Okay. And that's it for the 2019 goal update. But that is not it for the agenda, so hang on 1 second. Let me just, one moment.
Eileen, I have one more question about the goals.
Yeah, go
Since
ahead,
Claire
Jenny.
shared, where are we with that real estate flyer?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Did that come up? Oh.
It did now.
Okay, so that was an open action item, I believe, Eileen, on your last set of minutes. And where we left that was, if you recall, the Radnor Conservancy had interns. And James, that's not this James, it's the other James Sweet, was the intern. And we had volunteered to help, put together a flyer, be part of that. And sometime in August, I believe, and maybe Laura Lucas here, she can speak to it, James had sent an email to Tracy Poulos, who works for Berkshire Hathaway, who is, has a lot of experience. And she had some good ideas about going back to the idea of a document that Township would be required for settlement.
Oh.
But since James is no longer an intern right now, that's where we are.
So how do you propose we take this across the finish line?
Well, I think it needs to be put back in the Conservancy's court, I believe, because these were different ideas than what we had talked about as a board.
Are we able to see what Tracy's suggestions were
Sure,
that she came
yeah,
back to us with?
So she came back to James with it. I just happened to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is just where we left off was, I think Ginny's right, we would need to see that, because where we left off was that we thought it would be better to be like an educational flyer than something that a homeowner has to sign off as part of their closing, with the idea that they already have so many papers that they're signing off that planting a tree is probably not top of mind.
Yeah, and it would be
So it
hard to
would
get that through all the approval process at Radnor and
Yeah,
everything.
so we would need to understand that thinking.
Well, before Laura, I do want you to speak to it. I would feel that from our board is that the goal is to get as much information to homeowners as possible, that there is a tree ordinance and what that entails and how we can best support that. So these ideas are still there, and I do agree, Eileen, getting it across the finish line. It would be a partnering, I believe, with Conservancy.
Right, but can you speak to Tracy's rationale? Why would it be a signed-off form versus what we had proposed, just preparing a flyer and it comes with the homeowner package, welcome to Radnor? Then it doesn't need all the legal approval and...
I can't speak to that because those are my ideas for what we had talked about here.
Can you take that as an action item, though, to interface with Tracy and find out why is that a recommendation?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I don't think Tracy cares whether it's signed off or not. I
Okay.
think what the goal is that it gets into the hands of the homeowners.
Okay.
And so I think what we need to do is I will ask Gretchen Grobel, the executive director, to get a hold of that document and have her look at it and try to make it so it basically is just an informational flyer. And we can use this depending on real estate people want to use it in their offices, and if the township wants to use it in a welcoming packet. There's no signing off, no agreement. You have read this. This is you are now, I think that we have all agreed that's adding a whole nother layer of legal that is unnecessary. I do think it's super necessary that we get this information out as much as possible. Today, in my neighborhood, I had 6 trees taken down in two houses. And there's no address on our agenda here tonight. And there's no trees going to be planted in. So trees are being taken down left and right. We got to get people, and they're new neighbors. I mean, they're young neighbors. They don't know. So so the ball is in our court, okay? I will have Gretchen get that.
Okay, good.
I also would like to add is, I'm not opposed to a document that the township, that we put together, but I'm just one voice. So I thought that during the summertime, working with the intern, who is now back to high school, that was something that we could work on with him. So I'm looking for guidance, I think, are looking for guidance from Conservancy on how they would like to proceed.
I think we came up with the same idea at the same time. The Conservancy proposed the idea, the same one that we talked about as a group. So I think either way, we're aligned, and it's just we're now back aligned to the fact that we want an informational flyer, not one to be included in a signed-off package by new home buyers. So I think that's good. And so we'll see what Laura and Gretchen come up with, and then we can look to make sure it's consistent with our messaging and kind of branding and graphics. So.
And I'm willing to be the liaison between
I don't think
Conservancy and our group, if that helps.
Yeah, if you could take this action item, that would be great. Yeah, we'll leave that with you then. Okay. Okay. So since Ginny mentioned that, we'll just run real quickly through other open action items. So we still, just something to think about for 2020, guys, not now, but we need somebody to take over the ordinance. Where before that was Joe, and then Joe left the committee, so for 2020, we still want to update the ordinance, but I think we can wait and make that a goal in 2020. So just if someone's interested in volunteering, feel free. Trish and Steve, I know you were going to go through the website. Oh, sorry, Steve isn't here. Trish, sorry. Go through the website and correct the links. I think you got some of the major links, but I don't know if you've had time to go through the whole thing.
We did get a lot of like the major things done. It's going to be a big process. It's going to be there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and Steve and I have sat down and we've discussed, what our goals are to get this accurate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of links that are up there now. They don't even exist now.
Yeah.
So, like, you can click on it, you can try and Google it. It's just not there anymore. Like, they've moved that website. So, it is an ongoing process, and we are on top of it. Well, we're not right on top of it. We are moving forward pretty much daily.
Yeah.
We try and just get something
But you know
done.
what I'm thinking, Trish, and you guys tell me what you're thinking. So now that Trish has looked at this and she can see, hey, it's a lot of heavy lifting, there's a lot to correct, does it make sense to put all this effort and correct it, or should we just look and say, let's just take it up a whole notch? And so if we put forth the effort, we get kind of a bigger bang for our buck.
So you have to understand that the township has their own website, and we have to stick to a specific format. It's not, we can't change that. So we're sort of limited to what we can do.
Right.
So we're trying to make it look a lot better. It is also my understanding that there may be some changes that will be happening. So we also don't want to put all this time and effort and then come find out in January it's going to be a whole new system. So we're playing with that right now. So we're just trying to make sure that the important links are working. And the minor things we have on a list, and that is to be addressed.
I would like to add, I think it was late summer that there was someone that was reviewing plans, and he had used a tree formula in the checklist that was wrong, but then that was updated by, I think you had
Correct.
rewritten it? Okay,
It was
perfect.
updated, yes.
And I think that was the biggest pain point. So I think
Yeah.
the biggest issues are resolved at this point.
Yeah, so I would say, why don't we close this out, because we've got the big issues resolved. Let's see what comes in January 2020, how the website or the township changes what they want to do, and then from there, we can pick up the ball in 2020 and say, hey, how do we optimize this?
Perfect.
Okay, good. thought you may like that. And hey, Trish, along those lines, it's the same topic, but did you post the Radnor Conservancy invasive plant poster that was on one of the action items?
No, so we are, what we'll end up doing is we will put a link
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the poster.
to the Conservancy. We can't take their
No, that's fine.
product and put it on our website.
Yep. Have you provided that link?
We have not yet.
Okay, so I'll leave that open. Okay. Okay. And then, Matt, we had one open to you just to provide a list of the hazardous trees from the survey to Steve McNeilis, so he would have a running list of this is what has to come down.
Yeah, that'll come with the analysis John and I are going to do.
Yeah, we have that marked actually for the end of November. Yeah, so you have time on that.
Hey, you should push that till the end of February, by the time we get a hold of Tig and have him do all that good stuff.
Okay.
I can certainly get a rough list to Steve ASAP.
I think that would be helpful, because any trees that we can take down before all the winter storms come, I think that would be great. Okay, so I'll leave it end of November, and you'll just provide what you can, Matt. I think that's great. Okay, that's it for open action items. Okay, good, well done. Okay, so, old business, we covered that. New business. James, you had suggested 3 agenda items that are listed under new business. A memorial program. I know, isn't it great that Trish notes these things on agendas, otherwise we may forget. Okay, so do you want to speak to those 3?
Yeah, the one was the letters, I think. We should do something.
Mike?
Like really soon, if anybody wants to volunteer to write a letter to the organizations that donated to us. I'm not a letter writer, so I don't think, they might not donate again if I write it. So if there's anybody, but I think we should write a thank you
I'll
letter.
be happy to do that for you, James.
Yeah, just from the shade tree.
Communication person.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
and we send it to
Thanks,
the Radnor
Jamie.
Conservancy,
Yeah.
And
Chanticleer.
Chanticleer. And we just have to
And-
confirm the Chanticleer donation. I've been asking Bill White about that, so I'll just ping him again.
And
Yeah.
I guess Pico, too, we should really.
Yes.
Yeah, Pico.
Yes, very good point.
And then if we can do we use Radnor letterhead for that? Is that okay?
I would think it
Should
would
be
be
o-
okay. It's coming from the township.
Coming from the township, yeah, perfect. I think we should do that like soon.
So what I would suggest is that, your drafted letter would come to me, I would put it on the letterhead.
Okay.
Okay, great, Trish. I'll
Perfect.
send it off to you.
Right.
Yeah, we could even do one to Cabrini. I know their trees were somewhat obligatory, but to give 100 trees is fantastic. We love that. We
Yeah.
would love for them to think of us again.
And they might think of us again, exactly.
good.
Okay.
And that should be addressed to Howard.
Okay.
And we have the name for the Pico lady, too. So, yeah, once he does it, you never know with him. I'm joking.
What's that? I'm not aware of any donation from Bartlett.
Willows, they did a willow inventory.
Oh, the
That's a Willow
inventory.
Preserve, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, super. And then, James, did you want to speak about recognition to contributions to the community by planting trees?
Yeah, so I just had an idea, and I think it goes towards the getting people involved, too. But there was a couple people that I think we should maybe plant a tree and honor them or something like that. Would be another tree that we can plant, and we could come up with suggestions maybe of people, but not coming out clear here, but people that have spent time working with Radnor, donated. The
Oh,
person
yeah.
I have in mind is Mr. Ward, because I think he began or was part of the shade tree when they first started.
He was chairman.
He was chairman, and he's done a lot for the township, I think. And he still goes out with you,
Yeah.
Matt? Yeah. So I think him and,
Okay.
I mean, we can do a couple people or just something, we don't have to talk about it now, but maybe next
but maybe some,
Jim was chairman of Chaffey as well.
He's too young, though.
okay.
Yeah,
So, no, but
The whole
that's-
Ward family, yeah.
Yeah. But
But
that's
that
it.
might get some people,
Yeah, that's an
involved
interesting idea.
more.
It's kind of like, we could honor them and thank them, which may incent others, and at the same time, it could kind of be maybe some free press
and we're getting
to
a,
build some awareness.
and we're going to plant a tree, too, so.
Right, and
So more
maybe
tree.
we could do one of the bare root trees.
And the other thing I was thinking about was, I think Mr. Ward, was he a vet?
I don't know.
I think he was. But to Claire, I think you guys are doing the Veterans Park, redoing that or something. So it might be something we could put the tree in there.
Yep, and
Um,
also along that same lines is the banners that are being put together, heroes and veterans might
yeah.
align with some of those
Yeah,
in that park.
so I don't know how to go about it, but if you guys think it's something you'd be interested in doing.
Yeah, I like that idea, and then we can do like a nice brass plaque or something that
Yeah.
sits alongside the
We
tree
could
for its
present it
lifetime.
at a meeting. It might get more people involved as well.
Yeah,
Right?
okay, great. Yeah, so I would say, let's tee those up for 2020 and maybe make it part of like a spring planting, right? Because I assume now is too late, but make it part of next year, targeted for spring. Okay.
I can mention that idea to parks as well, as,
Yeah.
because Veterans Park is being, there's money being donated to do some work there, so maybe that would be a place to start.
Mhm.
Veterans and First Responders is the new name.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then we've got hazardous trees, 3 removed, so not a heavy month, but good to see. And then we're down to public participation. Okay, I think we've had our public participation. The public is worn out, is done with us. Okay, anything else before we close the meeting? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Yep, thank you.